slaves, and finally, the poor, the weak, and the sick. Here's one ancient philosopher from Rome, Plautus. He says, you do a poor beggar bad service by giving him food and drink. Okay, I know there's that tension of seeing someone who's begging and you say, should I give them money? Because this could go to substance abuse or God knows where. He's saying not money, food, right? Drink, helping them to stay alive. Why is that a bad thing to do, Plautus? You lose what you give, and you just prolong his life for more misery. That was the thinking in the ancient world. Here's Bart Ehrman, no friend of Christianity, an atheistic New Testament scholar, and he's arguing in this clip that dominance was the chief virtue in the ancient world. It led to the marginalization and dominance of babies, children, slaves, women, other towns, and even at the end, he says, the poor. So what do you think of this?
The ideology was one of dominance, that whoever was dominant, there were no ethical problems with a person who was dominating somebody. That's what they were supposed to do. And so you can read through the moral discourses of Romans and Greeks, and they don't problematize that. They don't problematize slavery. Of course, I mean, the master is supposed to be master of the slave, and so slavery is fine. Yeah, of course. They're usually prisoners of war in the ancient world. It wasn't a race thing. It's just, you enslave people. And men were to dominate women. Economically, socially, culturally, politically, sexually, and so it was all domination. And Jesus preached service, and it was completely contrary to what the dominant paradigm was that you're to serve others and to live for and to help the poor. And that's when, in the ancient world, the idea of helping the poor was like unheard of. It's like, are you kidding me? That's a joke. No, you're not going to help the poor. And so I completely agree with that is a paradigm shift.
Paradigm shift. We call that an understatement right there. Jesus, his most repeated teachings, what were they? If you give your life away, that's how you keep it. If you want to be first, you need to be last. The greatest of all is the servant love. It's all throughout Jesus' ministry, repeated over and over and over again. Gary Ferngren writes this. He's an expert in hospitals, of all things. He says, the hospital was in origin and conception a distinctly Christian institution. There were no pre-Christian institutions in the ancient world that served the purpose that Christian hospitals were to serve. Now you say, wait a minute, so you're saying there was no medicine in the ancient world? No, there was medicine. There were no doctors in the ancient world? They're in the Bible. Luke was a doctor, Colossians 4. Cyrannus, Galen, they had doctors back in the ancient world. Why? Why were there doctors? They were there to get the troops mended up so they could go dominate other nations. That's what doctors were there for in the ancient world. The Hippocratic Oath, very noble, wonderful. Guess the people it doesn't apply to? Children. Children are never mentioned in the Hippocratic Oath. So this idea that you have these places where you take care of the poor and the weak and the sick and the hurt only because you love them, only because they need the care. Where did they get that idea? One word: Jesus. Repeatedly, Jesus said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. This is how he inaugurates his ministry, to bring good news to the poor. When you have a banquet, who do you invite? Invite the poor, the disabled, the blind. Again, we read that, we just, in our Bible reading, just read right through it. Of course, you're supposed to help the poor. Of course, the marginalized, the hurting. In the ancient world, those were the outcasts. Sell your possessions and give it to the poor. In the ancient world, you would sell your possessions to buy a building, to create a coliseum, to get your name etched in the stone so that you could live on in memorandum forever. But Jesus said, no, you just give it for people, the poor.